Okay, we are live on Facebook also. So sorry, we can share the Facebook live link here also. Yes. Sarup, you get started with the brief intros and then we take the session, right?
For joining. We have with us Jatin from eChai and fellow panelist. Today we'll be talking about sales. We have with us SaaS founders. And Jatin, over to you. Why don't you just introduce and start the session? Thanks.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Swarup. Vinith, you asked this question, will the recording will be available? This is live streamed on Facebook, so that will always remain there, and probably CIIE Innocity team will be uploading on the YouTube also. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This particular program is organized by Innocity at CIIE and eChai. So today's session is about sales strategies for SaaS startups. So all of you, who are participating, you can use the chat button on the right side to ask any questions, and those will be watching the video probably on Facebook or later on the YouTube. In case if you have any questions, you can reach out to all of our speakers. We'll be mentioning the Twitter handles over there. So today's topic is sales strategies for SaaS startups. So we have 4 awesome SaaS leaders with us. So the format is that we will get started with their introductions and we'll have a brief discussion about how they go about doing sales and what would be their advice to other startup founders. And we'll take specific questions. Just to save time, I'll just continue with a couple of my announcements. So typically at most of these sessions, what we do is we have speakers announcing rewards for the best questions that they believe was good from this session. So towards the end, they will select which questions were good and they will give that 10 minutes of your time. So you can book a separate 10-minute Zoom call with them. That's an advantage. So keep on asking those questions and let's get started. So we have 4 panelists, Anthony from Tagalys, Prakhar from Whatfix, Jimmy from Floatbot, and Vaibhav from Hubilo. Anthony, if you can just briefly introduce yourself and what your company does, so people get familiar with your voice also.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Anthony. I'm one of the founders of Tagalys. Tagalys is a visual online product merchandising solution serving mid-market retailers using a platform called Magento, now owned by Adobe or Shopify. So merchandising is nothing but the ability to decide and predict what products to show in an e-commerce store. So our customers, because they're using platforms like Magento, they don't have in-house teams to do all of that analysis for them. Our engine does it for them automatically and also allows them to apply their human intelligence as well to influence what products their visitors see at the e-commerce store.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Prakhar, if you can briefly introduce about your organization.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jatin. Hi, everybody. Good evening. And my name is Prakhar Jain. I'm a part of Whatfix. I run the global inbound sales at Whatfix. Been with the company for about 6 years, started my journey with the founders as the first employee, and have been responsible for setting up the sales process from scratch. A little bit about Whatfix for you guys. Whatfix is, just think of Whatfix as an online GPS. That's a layer of technology built inside the application that basically guides your users end to end, step by step to complete a task in time. So let's say if you were a salesperson trying to add a lead in a CRM, the process could involve 6 steps. Whatfix could actually take you by offering over the shoulder help, step by step, telling you that, hey, click here, and go on to the next, helping you at the moment, real time, just in time, and letting you add the lead as well. So that's what we do from a digital adoption platform perspective. Over to you, Jatin. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Prakhar. Vaibhav, if you can briefly introduce about your organization. Yeah.
Hi, guys. My name is Vaibhav. I'm the founder and CEO at Hubilo. Hubilo is an event management software tool which is used by organizations, which is used by corporates, governments to manage their conferences. Recently, we've launched a virtual events platform which is being used quite a lot in the market, which enables organizers to have not just like a 1 session based webinar, but more like a 2-day event or a 3-day event with networking and engagement capabilities built in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Jimmy, if you can briefly introduce about your organization.
Sure, Jatin. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time. I'm Jimmy Padia, and I'm the CEO and founder at Floatbot. So we are a little unusual startup. We started from a tier 3 city called Bhavnagar in Gujarat, formally launched end of 17, and then in 18 we moved to Bangalore. So now we are Bangalore based. Floatbot actually is a SaaS based platform for conversational AI, chatbots and voice bots. So when we started, we were pretty much horizontal. That means we were working on multiple use cases, multiple verticals. And since about last couple of quarters, now we are honing down into specific use cases in insurance, in lending, and in banking. So yeah, that's about me, and then look forward to your questions.
Awesome. Friends, if you have any specific question, you can ask in the chat. We'll take it. So just that everybody gets more context about your work. Jimmy, what are the interesting numbers about your business that you would want to share?
One of the most interesting number is zero churn. So far, the customer that we had on early 2018 is still with us. I mean, we lost 2 customers, but they shut their shop. So I mean, that nothing to do with us. But otherwise, the businesses that are still running on and they're doing business, they're still with us for last couple of years. So that's I think a matter of pride for us.
Awesome. Prakhar, there were a lot of numbers were quoted in newspapers, but what are the interesting numbers you would want to share about Whatfix?
Yeah, sure. It's been pretty much a roller coaster ride for us as well from the time we started. So about 6 years, Whatfix has been in business, and we've seen a 3x year-on-year growth since then. So when I started, I remember back then we had 4 customers. Now we have about 600. We sell mostly in US, so 75% of our company's revenue is attributed by the US customers. Now, when I say 600 plus, these customers are across 30 plus countries. And also the fact that about 100 plus of these customers are Fortune 1000. So we work with the large enterprise segment. So, everybody you can think of, like a Daimler, clients like Compass, Volkswagen, Cisco, Facebook, Microsoft, etc. So pretty much, the large enterprises of the world basically use our product for digital adoption.
Awesome. Vaibhav, any interesting numbers that you would want to share?
Yeah, so till now we have catered to almost 5 million plus attendees in terms of the engagement activities. And since we have launched our virtual events platform, yesterday only we completed about 1,000 hours of virtual sessions in the last 1 month. Yeah.
Anthony, any interesting numbers that you would want to share?
Well, actually, when COVID first struck, like all of us on the session sitting here right now, we were also affected by it for the month of March. But interesting, right now we're seeing revenues up by 30 to 40% across most of our customers, and it's only going to be climbing right now because online seems to be the only channel of revenue for most of our customers right now. Secondly, I also feel that in the course of the last 2 years, we've also had a much better understanding on what is value that we deliver to our customers. And that has also helped us fine tune our pricing such that now, for example, our ACVs are up about 50% from what it used to be 2 years back, right? So I think in the course of the journey, by interacting with other founders and more importantly with customers, we have been able to kind of clearly understand what value we're actually adding to the customer and be able to quantify it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now we'll kind of go to flashback. So probably a lot of people will be watching this video or attending the program. They would be at an early stage of their SaaS business. So Anthony, when you started, how did you go about sales? Or typically, the timeline is like, you identify a specific problem, you build a solution, and then you believe that your solution can be used by anyone. Then how do you go about, selling to particular, or what was your initial sales journey? If you can share something on those lines.
Sure. So I think like a lot of founders early on, we made a bunch of mistakes in the beginning. We pretty much had a product. And again, we are a bootstrap company, so we are insanely frugal with the way we spend our money. So online sales has always been a channel of how we sell our products. But I think in due course of time, like I said, as we started understanding the value of the product, we were also able to kind of fine tune the value because what may be valuable to one customer is not valuable to another customer. And there became, for example, identifying the persona of the customers Jimmy mentioned early on. We didn't really know who we were selling to. Now we have a clear customer persona that we try and target and sell to. And there's also a buyer persona we try and target and sell to, right? I think early on in the process, when I love talking a lot. So typically, and I love what we are building. So I used to always rattle off on what the product can do for the customer. Whereas today, for example, I've taken a step back, and what I tend to do is that I tend to actually first understand what are the problems of the customer and only pitch what the customer wants versus trying to pitch features. So I think we do more of a solution-based sales process right now versus trying to basically sell features to the customer right now.
Awesome. Prakhar, you mentioned about you have a lot of customers right now, but you may also mention about there were 4 or 5 customers. So how did you get them? How did you identify them? What was your initial sales journey?
Sure. So Jatin, for us, the good and bad about being in this industry and digital adoption platform world was that we didn't ourselves know that we could call it a digital adoption platform. I mean, so our product is something that can work on any technology in the world. So like Anthony mentioned, his product and how it basically helps in, e-com cases and the merchandising and stuff. We could layer our technology on top of his product that could help his end customers. So our biggest challenge was to figure out who is our ideal buyer, because everybody was. It could be a website that could utilize our product to make it easy. It could be, the SaaS startups who are having a 14-day trial on their website and want to make sure that trial to conversions go up. It could be a customer success manager who is trying to make sure that the customer support queries are in check. So our biggest challenge was actually finding out the right persona. And we did make mistakes that we were trying to sell it to anyone and everyone. So again, I could relate a lot to what Anthony said, and our pitch was falling flat, because then you're not customizing the pitch basis different people, but you're just selling the same thing to everybody, which is a big mistake, because what, one person in a company might be looking at from a problem solving perspective could be very different from how another person looks at it, depending on their KRAs. So like if a product team, you're selling to a product team is very different when you're selling to a customer success team and so on. So we figured that out with time. And then, that evolved the entire methodology of how we went about our entire sales journey and process. I think initial days, it was very important for us to just, get the value proposition right in terms of what our product can actually do for you. You're doing it this way. There are 5 other ways you can do it. This probably might be the 6th, but it's the most cost effective and the best way to actually achieve the solution right now. So we started there. So we did not know solution selling back then, but of course it has evolved to a model now that we only rely on heavy solution selling with a very heavy discovery or a qualification process in place to understand the prospect requirements.
Awesome. Vaibhav, you sell to the government and all those big shots. What was your initial sales journey?
Ours was pretty awful, actually. So there are actually 3 things that are needed in a startup, right? One is your product, second is your team, and third is the market. We actually built the wrong product. We actually had outsourced our entire product because I did not have any tech person. So the product was quite crappy. We targeted the wrong market. We started targeting college festivals. So the market was also wrong. And our product, we did not have a team. So all 3 things that could have gone wrong went wrong in the first 3 to 6 months of our journey. So that actually gave me a lot of motivation to go ahead and solve each and everything. So then we started targeting conferences. Once we entered that particular thing, I hired my co-founder, which is now the tech head of the company. Then we built in an entire tech culture within the company. We have our own product now. We don't outsource much. So all the 3 things we were able to sort it out. And now we have a good amount of 120 plus enterprise clients who use our product on a regular basis.
Awesome. So Jimmy, was the sales the key criteria for you to move from Bhavnagar to Bangalore, or what was your initial sales journey?
So, our initial sales journey was also quite, it was quite surprising. So when we launched, we were the first one to, launch for a smart city in India, launched a chatbot way back in December 2017. And, I was quite excited about that fact that we are the first one in India. And there were pros and cons of both. The positive side was that we got eyeballs of some of the larger SIs such as, L&T, Honeywell, etc. Schneider, whom we started interacting in early 2018. But the downside was that it's not the right, customer for us. So we spent a couple of months and then, educating more smart cities. And then we realized that it's a bad vertical to work in. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved. And then you have to go through a tender RFP, which is always awarded to the lowest, price bidder, which is a L1. So it was a journey which started with a lot of excitement, and then which took a couple of months for us to realize that it's not the right persona for us. So same year we closed a bank, and that's when we started realizing the value of enterprise. The one other mistake that we did was we didn't have a, when we started, we didn't have any sales team as such. So, I was leading the sales. I'm not coming, I don't have a sales background. I'm, more from a delivery, project management or tech background. So that's something that we then try to fix a year later. And when we started, we also didn't have proper tools, and we, such as CRM, or, how to properly track a lead prospect to a customer, which is also very important for an early stage startup. So all in all, yeah, it took, and to answer your question, yes, I mean, when, we were meeting a lot of large partners, the location also did matter. And it was quite difficult to travel frequently. And that was one of the reasons we moved to Bangalore as well. So yeah, I mean, this were the kind of shaky start that we had.
Now all is good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's getting better, I would say. Nothing, I mean, every day it gets better. So now, and we were pretty much horizontal as well. So like Prakhar told, a chatbot or a voice, at that point only it was a chatbot. Voice journey we started early 2019. So it can be pretty much used by anyone and everyone, a college to a bank to an insurance. And we used to get a lot of inbound requests, so I mean, we used to only rely on, and that continued till I think in 2019, that we were mostly relying on inbound channels that would come to our website organically or to our partners. So we were partnered with like 10, 15 larger size, the big names in India. And so we were at their mercy, if we would only be good as the inbound leads that we would get. And we never had this concept of lead gen to set up an outbound team. So, I mean, that's something that we learned. And in 2019, then we set up, we understand our personas, we understood the verticals that we want to work in. And now we have set up an outbound team that does, approaches those customers in US and in our markets from, our own outbound investments.
Awesome.
I'd like to also add
yes,
Jimmy's point, right? So I think early on, I feel the grass is always green on the other side, because I've heard a lot of you speaking, and I noticed all of you had a horizontal problem. We had another problem in which we were like so niche focused that we in fact knew the market we wanted to do, but we still didn't know the customer persona, right? So I think end of the day, the common theme across all of us, what we're saying is that identifying the right customer persona is important. You may have different markets, different verticals you're going to be working in, but knowing who's going to buy it and why they're going to buy it and what they're going to potentially pay for the problem you're solving is kind of important and starting that sales conversation with them.
This is very important. Professor Saini has asked this question: how difficult it is for startup to get the first order, and how should the startup respond to it? Vaibhav, Anthony, you want to pick that up?
Sure, I can happy. I think there were two. Our very first customer, in fact, we got them through two ways. One is we try to reach out to all our entire network of mentors and other people out there that had a connection into a board of another e-commerce company, right? That was in fact one of our earliest customers we got was through in fact a mentor that knew the board member of another company, and we got a connection. That was one through a referral network. The other customer that we got, again, like I said, was in fact Kalyan Jewelers or Candia. They're still a customer today. And at that point, even today, we're much smaller than Kalyan Jewelers, but we made them an offer they could not refuse. And I just told the founder that, you know what, just give me a 30-day trial, and I'll make sure this pricing is going to last for a year if we don't increase conversion. So conversion rate is the KPI that we get measured on. So I pretty much was able to quantify the value, saying that if this is your average order value, this is your current conversion rate, if we do a 30-day trial and improve to so much, you've already made your money, right? So I pretty much made him an offer which he could not refuse. And I think we are fortunate they took a chance on us back then. And ever since then, we started with one product, and today we power the entire online store for them right now.
Awesome. So all of you in a way briefly mentioned that in early days it was tricky to identify a specific target persona that you would want to target or the market.
Jatin,
So,
I'd like to add on that question.
Yes, briefly. Then we'll take.
Yeah, very briefly. Yeah, I mean, apart from the direct network, personal network that you have, you can these days you have dedicated accelerators that you can be part of. If that fits your vertical and or your use case, and those guys can introduce you to some large customers with whom you can do POCs. So that's a you can explore a lot of accelerators in F6s in India, outside India both.
And probably all of you can give a one-line answer to this. All of you briefly mentioned that initially it is little tricky to identify a target persona, and then over the period of time you realize, okay, now this is where my product is getting more traction, or this is where I can focus more. So that realization came eventually, or there was one, some big ticket customer says that this is how you should do it, and then you go back to the board and just redo everything. So what was that point? Typically, sometimes what happens, you persist that things will work. So what was the trigger for you and that realization, okay, now we should take all our efforts in this particular direction? Prakhar, if you can share something on those. And Vaibhav.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, Jatin, it's hard actually initially because you made your business plan for a particular persona because you absolutely think that it is right. But then the ground reality, when you go to the market and realize that, okay, it might be something else. So then you start capturing some feedback and start seeing how things are going with a particular persona, and then you might want to target some branching ones to it as well. Like for example, like in Whatfix, I can tell you it's slightly niche and probably not the best example in this case because we can sell to anybody. Like we can sell to a marketing person, a product person, a customer success person, a CEO, and so on. But the important one for us to be able to identify was what's the low hanging fruit. Why would somebody buy at a faster pace than opposed to the other personas? And I think that came with a few customers coming on board when we started realizing that, hey, while we are actually trying to pitch a particular value, there are 3 more other values that these guys are seeing with our product as well. You learn so much from your initial customers. And, some of the customers initially, and this is slightly in tangent to the last question as well, that some of the initial customers that you get are not so much only because of your product. They buy because of you as a person. They trust you as a person more than the product. It's a 2-people company. I mean, we were selling to a large enterprise initially, and we were asked that you guys are a 2-people company. What if on your way back you're run over by a bus? And these are the sort of questions that come from when you're pitching to a CIO sort of a persona. So they're not buying because of your product so much. Yes, they trust your product. They know it's bare shell and it will come in shape, but they trust you more, that you will be the person behind it who will actually bring things into shape. So I think it's more to do with getting a lot of market feedback with any customer you're onboarding. I wouldn't even call it a customer. I would say any prospect you are talking to. Even if you are not winning a customer, that feedback is important because you're learning from every conversation that that is happening. And then you are going on from there. So that's the only thing I would like to add for our audience today.
Vaibhav, you wanted to any specific trigger point you had, or what was your experience?
Initially, like one thing that we used to do is we used to try to sell to as many customers as possible. Like we had we used to sell it for like $500 or say $100 or like in that particular range from $100 to $500. And then in our startup journey only last year, we realized that we are actually meant more for enterprise clients, wherein then we started charging them about $30,000. So then we realized, okay, so that is actually the right kind of people who would want to buy our product, wherein we don't go for 1,000 people, but we go for 100 clients, but who pay us 10 times more than the existing clients. So then that's how we decided that, okay, that is our persona that we should move forward with.
Awesome. Jimmy, you want to respond to that? Then we have a couple of more questions from our audience. Yeah.
I mean, so I was, I was told, we went to a few accelerators and had a few mentors as well. All of us told us to focus on one beachhead, one use case. But every startup founders makes this, makes this mistake. So I mean, I won't blame you all. So the earlier everyone learns, better it is. But when the time that when we were not growing at the pace that we wanted to, we realized what's wrong, and then we realized the sales cycles are are longer, and to close in, because all the use cases are different. We are pitching in vertical A, we are pitching in vertical B, we are pitching in vertical C. And that's when we realized, if you're just focused on one vertical, and there would be a lot of cross-reference that we can give, that would that would have our expertise. And when we are talking to the customer, we'll not be just talking technology. We'll be talking in their own language. The business language will be using those same lingos that they are used to, whether it's insurance or. So that's when we realized, to accelerate our growth and to have that, a better sales cycle, we need to sell something more than technology, and that is the domain expertise, a lot of other things, and that's when we realized we need to focus on few use cases and not all.
Awesome. Anthony, you briefly mentioned that, but was there a particular trigger for you?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of approaches to this. Like for us, I mean, most of us are going to build a product that might already exist in the market, right? Like what Shekhar Kirani had once mentioned at SaaS Boomi was always get inspired by the competition, right? So what we did was once we found our product, we kind of figured out who would be the nearest competitors, pretty much saw their customer list, figured out who they're targeting. They had much bigger teams than us. So instead of going through the whole process, we pretty much used them as a reference. Saying, okay, those customers fall into a certain segment. That should be a segment we can potentially compete with right now, right? That is one approach we used. Another approach which we're using right now is as we refine our pricing. And again, in our product, there is a correlation to our price and revenue a customer generates. So if our pricing is X, we know that we can generate Y amount of revenue. And if Y amount of revenue, you pretty much understand what size and scale the customer is going to be as well, right? So I think as you start getting more clarity in your product and the product market fit becomes more and more clearer, your persona development also becomes a lot more clearer. Your approaches are going to be a lot more different. But early on, like I said, when you get the first 10, 20 customers, you just take what you can. You find out who you're going to actually work with, because I think early on, the biggest challenge is trust. How does anyone trust you? So you just take what you can and start iterating on that.
Correct. Sheshanandan has a very good question. Post-COVID, how are you seeing your product go well in the market, considering now people are not buying that much? Business increase, business decrease, what is the scenario? Brief answers. Jimmy, we start with you this time. How's the business post-COVID?
So for us, it increased, I would say. And I mean, we actually were on almost 6 to 7 demo calls daily. Maybe one reason could be that now our customers have more time to look at the demo. They don't have to go to office, and so that could be one reason. But definitely a lot of demo inquiries. I mean, closures also, we had few closures. Few more closures would come, but for us it was a good thing that happened.
Prakhar, you have a lot of large clients, and a lot of their industries are being impacted. So what is your experience?
So ours has pretty much stayed the same. I would say a slight uptick because it balanced out, because we serve to a lot of industries. Few industries are definitely booming. So we have pivoted our GTM to serve those industries and catered our entire outbound approach, etc., to just serve those industries more. So industries like healthcare, pharma, cybersecurity, collaboration tools, IT products, all of these are like pretty much booming. However, if you look at industries like automobile, aviation, travel and hospitality, retail, these are not doing as well. So how we are actually trying to maintain the right balance is that the former industry is the one that would actually give you deals right now to help you continue the same momentum at the same pace. The latter industry is one where we are actually still having conversations, because we've come up with a concept of an EDR. So not so much an SDR, but being an educational development rep, so that we are educating people on what our product can help you achieve, so that when the timing is right, they are nurtured well enough, when the budgets are right, etc., then they can actually be ready to purchase our product. So that's how we're trying to maintain a healthy balance between what's going on today versus what we're planning on in the future. But again, definitely the industries that are impacted, you can't push them too much to make a purchase right now. I would agree, but there are still a lot of industries where people have the money, they want to invest in technologies to automate stuff. Because if you just take an example of healthcare as an industry, it's crazy. I mean, with the sort of queries and the support queries that is shooting up for each of the different teams internally, because even post-COVID, every single these healthcare companies have a requirement of more and more coming in, and they need something like us. So then again, pivoting that strategy has helped as well.
Prakhar, probably this question is for you. Damodar has asked, how are you ensuring the price confidentiality between customers in the same cluster or community?
Right. So again, from a pricing perspective, all our customers are bound by contracts. So that's one piece. They got to ensure that they're bound by confidentiality obligations of not sharing the pricing publicly in the industry. Plus, depending on your product, there could be so many dynamics involved in the pricing, like with a very bare understanding of what I now understand about your product, Anthony, I'm assuming it's completely basis the conversion, right? So depending on how much business a company does, you charge them basis that on what conversions you're provided. In ours, it's completely dependent on how many users you are purchasing the product for, what product it is it a heavy usage product versus a light usage product, and so on. So again, those dynamics play a role, but typically in conversations, we're setting that expectation, right? That, hey, this is bound by confidentiality. We have an NDA in place. So nothing that we are discussing becomes public ever until, it's a case study, and then we are taking permissions to sort of make some of those public.
Correct. Vaibhav, in a way, you transformed your business from physical conferences to virtual conferences. So what is the impact in your business?
So like in the month of February, we saw that all the events globally were getting cancelled. Our entire revenue for the next 6 to 8 months went for a toss. Wherein in the month of February, we made almost just zero revenue, right? From a $1 million ARR to that much, because most of the clients were canceling the contracts. We quickly launched a product for virtual events within 15 to 20 days, launched the beta for it, and then now we are back at it. So our actually best months of Hubilo are going on right now, because we're getting a lot of queries. We are doing almost 30 to 35 demos a day at this point of time, getting almost 40 leads. We've got almost 1,200 leads in the last 2 months. So yeah, it's going good for us, and we don't know whether how long this will last, but what we are imagining, like all the industry experts in the event industry are saying, that it's going to be more of a hybrid model.
Anthony, your response, and then there are a lot of audience questions which we'll take up after that.
I think the only market where we've still seen a decline in sales is actually India, because I think the lockdown is still effective in a bunch of places right now. But I would say in North America, in Europe, Australia, we've actually seen an increase in sales, because there, in fact, the traffic and the sales numbers of our customers are going up the roof right now.
Wow. Saina has asked, after running the sales process for a few months, we have recognized that within the organization, we are targeting, typically there is influencer in that organization, buyer or user. How much attention do we spend on each? Where should marketing be focused? All of you in a way have B2B clients, so who will pick that up? Prakhar, you want to pick that up?
Sure. So, I think a lot, Saina, depends on what sort of product it is and what ticket size are you selling at. So higher the ticket size, more will be the number of buyers involved, be it any market. So typically in a B2B sale, which is averaging around $20,000 to $30,000 or above, you will have 6 to 8 buyers involved. That's not me, that's Harvard Business Review saying. So when you're actually looking at that, it's very important for you to identify who these people are and what sort of a role are they playing in the buying cycle. So for somebody, like we've identified 3: influencer, buyer, and a user. Yes, there would be an executive sponsor as well, who would probably not be in front of you, but who is sponsoring the project, who will ultimately write the check. There will also be a negative influencer who is actually, again, not showcasing so much that, but is going to be supporting your competition and is trying to pull you down in that buying cycle. So again, out of those 6, 7 people, you got to identify who these people are and then plan your pitch accordingly. From an attention perspective, I would say each of them are equally important, because you don't know who is going to swing the deal against you in that buying cycle. So each of them are equally important. You got to make sure that if you have to win that $100,000 deal, everybody is in your favor. And you have to, that is the reason you have to identify them early in the cycle. You will have to first identify who is your champion. So a champion is a person who is actually going to be making a sale on behalf of you in that organization. So I very strongly believe that when a salesperson is actually making a sale, there is somebody in that organization making that sale for you. You can never do that alone. So you identify who that champion for you is. And that person will actually give you a lot of internal insights also on who is the influencer, who is the buyer, who is the end user, who is the economic buyer who is going to be writing the check, executive sponsor, and who is the negative influencer as well. So once you have identified that entire decision-making map, then you got to give them, each of them, enough and more attention. The most attention I would always give to is the negative influencer, because they are always the ones that swing the deal against you. Another part of this question is just around where should marketing be focused. I would actually try and spread the marketing across buyer personas. I would least target the users because they have very little say. In general, they are actually lower down the food chain. A lot of say actually lies in the hand of either the executive sponsor, or probably the buyer or the decision maker who is pushing the sale. So if you sell to directors and VPs, I would try to route my marketing towards them, my messaging towards them, so that they see us more and actually they reach out to us. So long answer to the short question, but had to be elaborative.
Awesome, but thank you so much for that. Ajay has asked, did all of you come across a point where sufficient capital adequacy wasn't there? How did you handle this situation? Yeah, this is a very important question. I also want to know the answer. How did you handle the situation where there was a capital adequacy? Who will pick up that?
You mean inadequacy, right?
Yes, inadequate. Yes. Jimmy, you want to pick that up?
So yeah, we are still a bootstrap startup. So we have made our money from our customers' revenue. So yes, there have been several times in last 2 years where we had inadequate capital, and you do feel that demotivated or whatever. I mean, it's all that you need to keep going. It's good if you can have some cash ready from your family or friends, or someone who is, whenever you have that inadequate cash which you can borrow in form of a loan and then return it back, or in form of some angel investors that you're talking, you can write a small check of 10K, 20K, 30K, whichever is that. But I mean, most important is that you have to keep your journey going.
So Jimmy, in your case, what happened?
In my case, I'll tell you, I had I used to take, so my family is quite affluent. So whenever I needed, I was in, let's say, a short of 5 lakhs, I would request them to write a check, and whenever I had the money, I would return them back. Okay. So I understand, not everyone could have that leverage, but yeah, I mean, it's important to keep going. And so there were times, let's say, a lot of people told us that, it's going to be difficult. I mean, but you still have to keep going and find your differentiators to keep shining and getting that edge. And if you believe in yourself and your journey, I think someday you would get it. It might take a little longer. And the most painful would be that, I think it's when you don't have the money and your competitors have a lot of money. So, that I think the extension of that question is that, when you have couple of lakhs in your account and your competitors have couple of $1 million in their account, how would you still compete with them? I think that's where the all this personas and use case and narrowing down. I think you trusting your team, your traction, your team also matters a lot. So always have very good relation. Consider them as part of your family, because in their tough times, you may have to request some of the team members, if not all, to delay their salary or part of the salary. So at least the senior ones, which so you have to give some ESOP, some compensation, some incentives to them as well, where you can say, I can only pay half of the salary right now, and probably other half I can delay it. And I'm sure, if they are part of the journey, they would definitely agree to that. So there's no one answer to it. You have to juggle a lot. And right now, for example, we are sitting in excess cash that has run away for 6 months. So now we are at a stage where we are going international. We're getting into US market, UK market, and we are even able to pay retainers. So we have hired some consultants in US, in UK, and they've asked for retainers. We are able to pay that. So there were times when we were not able to even afford an employee in India, but now we're able to afford retainers in US and UK market, which we thought could never happen. So I would say trust yourself, listen to your mentors, ask, and also ask your customers as well. Take feedback from them. Don't be emotional towards your product. If it's a crowded space, if something is not working, at some point, if you want to take a decision to end it or to pivot it, or at least narrow down to use cases. So that was our awakening, to narrow down to use cases. And that's worked well for us.
And make good friends, because as a founder, you'll always get into a situation where if not money, you'll have some other problems.
And last thing, good friends. I mean, as Prakhar told, first 5 customers that bought our product was not because of product. That was because of me. and because they trusted me, they think, I mean, Jimmy is the start and the end of the product. That's it. Okay, so till now, and I would say lately, I think you could also rely on a lot of government funds. So government these days are coming out with competition. CIIE, in fact, we were part of Innocity CIIE. That's what hosting this. They run a couple of competitions in a year that gives a check of 3 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees. So you have those small funds available these days in form of Karnataka had that competition Elevate, which gave a check of 25 lakhs. So these days, I think those avenues, you have to find out those avenues which can give you small checks of 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 2 lakhs, and that keeps you going in those early days. And those, trust me, those are a big cushion.
Yeah. Vivek has asked this question. Anthony or Weber, you can pick that up. What are the different ways or innovative ways to reduce sales cycle? And what have you done? Any interesting experiences you can share?
So what
Anthony?
we're doing these days is that, so again, our pricing is not publicly available in the market, and we kind of customize pricing based on conversation with our customers. So typically, in order to kind of create urgency or reduce the sales cycle, we pretty much have a line added saying the pricing is valid till so and so date, right? So we always create a date-bound pricing, so which basically makes them make a decision much faster. By offering them a slightly larger discount to kind of reduce the sales cycle, because the MRR increase you can get by getting them started much more is going to be more than the actual discounts you give them. So we add a date bound to our proposals we give to our customers.
Awesome. It's 5:41 and there are a lot many questions. So all of you can, all the panelists, you can also check out the Q&A part. Probably you'll be able to see that. So in cases if you can directly respond that would be great. Also, I'll read out some of the questions. Habib Ali has asked, how do we modify a created persona?
Sorry, Jatin, before we go there, can I chime in on the last question? It's
Yes,
one of
please.
my favorites.
Yes,
so, typically from a sales cycle perspective, there are different processes to it. So dissect your sales cycle into those sub stages. See who all are you dealing with. So let's say if your product is something that's going to be embedded as an OEM as a part of the original product, there is no way bypassing IT. You will undergo an IT review. If there is a product which is a significant size, there is no bypassing legal. There is somebody from legal who is going to be involved, who is going to be reading your paperwork and signing a contract. Now, if you see some of these processes, you would notice that the person who is doing the POC versus the person who is doing the IT review versus the person who is doing the legal review are not connected at all. Just start all those three processes in parallel. If the prospect has basically agreed and has given you a soft yes that, hey, we want to buy your product, and then they are saying that, hey, this is the timeline we are targeting, do a backward math with them that, hey, you want to go live with this is the returns you're expecting, this is the results we are promising you, but this is basis if we do this. So let's start these three processes in parallel. So if each of them individually took 1 month each and your sales cycle was 3 months, automatically now you are at 1 month because you started all of these in parallel. So that works wonders for us. Definitely wanted to add that for our folks today.
Yep. Probably, how do we, Habib has asked, then we'll take the question from Ritu. How do we modify a created persona?
So I think as you evolve over time, right? I mean, as your product starts getting mature, you will eventually start targeting a different persona, like who we targeted 2 years back with what we built as value and features. Features generate value. The pricing of that value will change as you evolve in time. So I think it's important for you to keep talking to your customers, to keep understanding if they're willing to pay more for the additional features you do. And that's how you can modify a persona and keep growing over time as well.
Yep, awesome. Ritu has asked, how to create a need for petrol pumps to automate with good petrol management software, as when the salesperson goes for presenting a demo, they answer with having friendly use with Tally or else. Petrol pumps like HP have their own software, but how to tackle this situation and how to identify the target audiences in the right manner. It's a pretty long, but just to probably if there is a petrol management software and people like HP are using in other petrol pumps, how do you present? In case if I'm interpreting your question, Ritu, you can add any more context, or Jimmy, you want to respond to that?
No, I'm clueless actually, but what the question is it specific?
Ritu,
I read it. Maybe I'll chime in, Jatin. I read
yes,
it. It seems more a market research question of first identifying, is there a gap that even exists in the market? Because it seems like if SP has created their own software and is being used by thousands of petrol pumps in India, then probably there is not a need for that form of software. So I think there's more context needed in order to understand what makes you feel that there is even a problem existing in that industry? So what's the trigger point of that? And then once you identify that, then of course there's a lot of market research and validation needed with a few initial set of people to ensure that there is enough need for that form of a product. I mean, that's what I can make out from what's given out there.
Awesome. Pankaj asked a very good question. Anthony or Weber, you can pick that up. How do you tackle the issue of proving reliability of your product against the huge competition initially? Because in a way, Anthony briefly spoke about the competition, and so you have a competition. Yes.
Yeah. So in our case, we actually had a lot of competitors in the event management software space. How we differentiated ourselves was in terms of the design line that we were providing, because most of the competitors, they become incumbent wherein their design becomes archaic. So that was one thing that we focused a lot on, like our design of the website, our design of our dashboard, the design of the user interface should be really nice, which actually gives a lot of leverage to you in terms of when you are talking to your competitors, and also build such pages wherein you can create landing pages wherein there's a clear demarcation of feature set that is mentioned in terms of the pricing also. So what we have seen is just study your competitor more. If suppose the competitor is offering 5 integration features, you offer them 10 integration features, or you offer 20 integration features. And if they are offering at X price, you offer it at 2/3 price of that. So that way you're able to increase the value. So if suppose I'm offering at half the price and offering double the features, so they're getting 2x, 4x the value of the entire solution. Yeah.
Anthony, how do you prove the reliability of your solution?
So again, I don't know if it's reliability or just comparability, right? Much about the exact way. Let's go to comparisons here in general. So I feel that at an MVP stage, having those bare minimum features which your competition has basically helps you like step into the arena and compete with them, right? But I think ever since we've started competing with the competition, after a while, what we did is we stopped looking at the competition. We in fact picked a few of our key customers that we felt wanted to collaborate with us, and we've actually opened a product roadmap to our customers. So right now we have a monthly meeting with most of our key customers. We ask them because your customers are more likely worked with 10 more competition of yours across their journey across multiple companies as well. So they probably have a lot more insight about the market because you're solving their problem. So we work with our customers now to basically define and build the product. And I think naturally by virtue of those actions, our product has started to differentiate itself because it's input from the customer versus us trying to compete with the competition. I also feel looking at the competition and building something might sometimes harm you because you don't know if when the competition built that particular feature, was that a blockbuster feature or not? Was that actually a value generating feature, the revenue generating feature or not? What value did the feature have, right? And you want to make sure whatever you spend time in development is going to return revenue for you. So when we build features for our customers, we first ask them how much will you pay for it as well. That's what we ask them first before we even build it. That's how we start figuring out is there value in what we're building.
Awesome. 547. So more like a rapid fire kind of a thing. Prakhar, before COVID, was the process like you were meeting some of your big ticket customers to close the deal, and if that was there, and what is the situation now?
Yep, 0 meetings. So basically, as we mentioned, most of our customers are global. So after India banned all the international flights, of course, it was down to 0, and we have not had a single meeting, face-to-face meeting in the past 4 months now. But that hasn't sort of brought any difference in the sort of revenues we are clocking, mainly because, I think it's more also to do with just setting up expectations with your customers. So when you can't travel, it's not because of a reason which is under your control. You got to explain them the business continuity that, hey, I mean, this is short term. It's going to go probably in 6 months, 12 months, whenever. But you and me are going to be here and we got a business to take care of. And there are some continuity plans in place that you will still have to adhere to and abide by. So how do you do it then? So why not use this time to actually get it through and then help you out building some of this so that we are ready for the game ahead. So again, we've been very educational in the process. I think that has helped a lot. Yes, the number of meetings have shot up. The sales cycle has shot up for sure. No denying that. But we have been able to successfully, curb out a way of actually going around the face-to-face meeting. Already, we are heavily focused on the inside sales model. So 95% of our sales always happen just purely basis inside sales. But the rest 5% that was actually reliant on that, I think we've been doing a very good job in terms of how we've been able to do that even without meeting people face to face.
Awesome. So we get into this part where we want to know what experts wants to know from another expert. So Jimmy, what would be your question to any of the panelists? Anthony, Vaibhav, or Prakhar?
So Prakhar, I think I can ask a question to him. I've known a lot about him. I've heard a lot about him.
Ask something that you don't know about. So
I hope good things, Jimmy.
yeah, very good things, Prakhar. Being the first employee of Whatfix and going strong. So yeah, I think what are your, I think you've done a fabulous job in inside sales, especially for inbound. I think what are the top 3 things that you have learned over time by doing a lot of mistakes? Okay, and you'd like to share with all of us so that we don't make those same mistakes.
Yeah, sure. So, when you start, your perspective actually keeps on evolving with time, and no stage of the company is the same. So the first mistake that we made was that the 0 to 100 journey, whatever worked for us, did not necessarily work for us in the 100 to 1 mil journey, did not work for us again in the 1 to 5 journey, and again did not work in the 5 to 10 journey, and so on. So I think one biggest learning is that even when things are working for you, stay paranoid about what are the gaps in the process and what more you can do to improve. One of the earliest mistakes that we made was that just being complacent with how things were, and we started believing that things were going really well. So when you're starting, as a startup, and this would be a slightly long answer, but I want to cover some aspects. But so when you're starting as a startup, one salesperson that you hire is basically doing end to end. So I was doing end to end. But then I would see a productivity dip in my performance where 1 month the graph would be like a roller coaster. It would be like a wave. So 1 month it would be up, next month it would be down, next month it would be up again. And then we started realizing, after I analyzed 3 months data, started realizing that, okay, what's actually happening is 1 month I'm building a pipeline and next month I'm focused on closing. So I wasn't able to do both at the same time. That was the first trigger point for us when we realized, okay, we need a full-time SDR, time to get one. So then we got an SDR who could build a pipeline for me, then I could focus only on closing. So that accelerated the whole process. Now, this is something where startups actually realize, 8-9 months down the line, and you've lost a lot of time in the process. This could have been shortened. So that 3 months itself, now I feel was too much. I could have done it in the first month itself. Then, when you're actually scaling and, doing things, one of the key aspects of doing early as a part of your, it's not so much a part of your sales process, but is equally important, is getting a customer success person in place who is making sure that your deployments are being successful. It's very demotivating for sales if your sales team is actually getting customers in, and if your churn is basically at the same level. Then your sales guys can easily get demotivated because, okay, I'm doing everything I can to get them. It's not easy. And now there's a leaky funnel where, I get people and now they're no more in the system 3 months down the line, which is actually something I feel very strongly about creating a differentiation as well. Because see, when you go on the feature war, your competition can have 20 more people building the strongest of features, better features than you can because they're more money, etc. But one differentiator that every Indian startup can create very easily with almost no cost is having a very strong customer success team in place. So if you have that, and if your churn is under check, then that opens up another GTM channel for sales, which is account management and expansion. Now, if your customer success has given you the sort of success that you were looking at, now again, as a salesperson, you jump into those accounts and you see all the success that you had promised. Now is the time when you talk expansions and how I can sell more. So that's the second route. Again, we realized that 6 to 8 months later, I would definitely recommend anybody to do that early and create that differentiation. Third, I think is, more around when things are scaling. Definitely try and get an operations person early in place as well. As founders and as sales leaders, we tend to do a lot of data and number crunching ourselves to figure out patterns. But, in the first 1 million journey itself, when midway, if you're able to get an operations person on board is really good. Have a CRM in place. Don't go on Excel sheets. It's not scalable. It doesn't do any good, and your data will go for a toss when you scale. You'll find real trouble. So get a CRM, get some tools in place that are giving you the end-to-end journey early, and an operations person who is doing the number crunching, giving you patterns. So when you're hiring people, there is a clear playbook of how to go about it. Because initially what can happen is that, okay, you're doing ad hoc as a founder, as a sales leader, you like to do experiments and you see what works out of it. But when you hire 2-3 people, those experiments are not going to work as well, because the way you do things versus the way they will do things will be different, etc. They need a process, and that process will actually come out of some of these things that I mentioned. Probably I went on all different tangents, but I hope that sort of
that
adds
was
some
very
value to
useful,
the answer.
Anthony, what question you would want to ask anybody else?
So I'll keep the question open to everyone here. Right? I had two questions. You can pick one of them. The first question I wanted to kind of understand from you is, in these current work from home COVID times right now, are you seeing an increase or decrease in customer acquisition cost, like the CAC numbers? Like, if it's going up, what percentage? That's one question. The second one is, since we might have a few candidates who are MBAs on the call right now, I wanted to ask and learn from your experiences, do you think somebody that comes from a structured educational course like an MBA from a large institution, will they fit well in an early stage startup or something that's already scaled up with a process that's already available? What do you think? So I have two questions.
Very good question. Prakhar, Jimmy, Vaibhav, who would want to answer this?
Yeah, so I can answer the first one in terms of the CAC. The CAC has reduced for us because we can see that we have been able to, I think it might be the situation as well, because people are searching for the product that we are marketing, but the other founders also that I'm talking to, for them, the CAC has reduced. And to answer your second question as well, we would actually not prefer like people who have had some kind of background in doing an MBA, like joining our early stage startup, because then, so there are two things. Either we hire people who can give us at least 2 to 3 years before they do an MBA, or so that we understand, okay, they're not just going to come with us for a year and then shift to their MBA programs. Or we hire people who have done their MBA but haven't joined any other company. So that way we can modulate the culture and everything that they bring in.
Okay, awesome. Prakhar, what would be your question to any of the panelists?
Yeah, so during these current times, I think while COVID has brought a few challenges in front of us, any unique strategies that you guys have tried from a marketing standpoint that has worked for you in just, not so much from a customer acquisition perspective, but at least a lead or a demand gen perspective?
I can try to answer that.
Yes, Jimmy.
More so on I can say on the business model. So we always used to be we always used to have a fixed cost or a retainer cost that would at least be a couple of $1,000s a month, every month, or few $10,000, $20,000 that will start with every year. So to win customers in COVID-19 situation, we have got to know business model of purely pay as you go. So so in our case, for example, where we are a chatbot or a voice bot, we are telling to customers that just pay for per chat or per voice, because we want to win that customer, we want to have that logo with you. And this is not for all the customers. This is only for the customers that we have narrowed down for our persona. Okay, so we know that this is the vertical that we are chasing, and in this vertical we want to have at least 10 customer ASAP. And so how can we have that customer ASAP sign up with us? Is purely go as pay as you go model. So right now we talked with 3 customers are about to close, because they know it's few cents or few it's purely pay as you go. So that's one thing. On the lead gen, demand gen, I think we just appointed a director of sales for US for lead gen, and we are trying a lot of we got into paid account for LinkedIn, which we are shooting a lot of emails, we are doing a lot of sequences, things like that. But yeah, probably things which you're already aware of. So nothing new in the for you at least.
Awesome. We have a lot of questions coming up, so probably we'll extend by another 5 minutes if it's fine with all our speakers. Vaibhav, you are supposed to ask question to Anthony now.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Anthony. Anthony, has your team's productivity increased or decreased during this lockdown? Overall, like in a combined manner?
So I think fortunately it's remained the same. We didn't try to, initially I think early on things were off because building a product outside of a 3D environment, like sitting and I missed the whiteboard to sit down and draw the product, sketch it and brainstorm. I think that ideation phase kind of slowed down quite a bit because I was unable to kind of translate my vision on a 2D screen via Zoom to my teams right now. But I think the tech team is a lot more happier because they don't have me around right now. I'm not there behind their backs asking them. So I think they get a lot more work done faster because all they do is focus on the product. But also we're making sure that we don't get burnt out. That's another problem. The thing which I've noticed is that sometimes you tend to work longer hours. So we try and ensure that everyone gets enough rest because this is not going to end anytime soon. We foresee ourselves working at a minimum till the end of December from home. So we want to make sure that we don't burn out the team by just trying to build things faster and faster and faster right now.
For some reason, like we haven't got any leaves or anything like that from our existing team. Otherwise, earlier people used to just put in a lot of leaves, just like at least 5 to 6 people a week were absent or for some reason or the other. But because of this lockdown, like we haven't seen much leaves happening. So like our productivity overall has increased a lot. Especially
Folks cannot work now. Bhavin has asked, I'm not from IT background and still have much interest in SaaS, which is based on real-time data. What platform do we have to start with? Bhavin, this is a very broad question. If any speaker is able to understand the context, you respond. Else, Bhavin, if you
he wants to do a startup in that area. What is his question?
Yes, assuming that is the question. Well,
yeah, I think for sure, coming from tech background is not at all a mandatory thing. You start your own startup. I would suggest you have again a very commonly used phrase: start with a problem. If you see there's a problem somewhere, and start with that and go back to your drawing board and try to do some research more in that industry, talk to more customers, more users, and then come up with your product strategy.
Okay, we'll take on the last question from Ankur. He's from Vastra app. So in a scenario where your target audience is not is offline, is not that active online. So how do you get inbound, outbound leads for that target audience, especially in cities like Surat, Ahmedabad, Delhi, Indore, Jaipur?
I think that Indian clients are especially more open to calls rather than emails. Like they prefer that. So yeah, that is something that you can easily do.
I personally think Facebook and TikTok, everybody is on those apps these days, Instagram. So, let that be Surat or Ahmedabad. You can always have ads on those kind of platforms.
Meesho is leveraging it really well, but that is more on the B2C front. For B2B,
correct, exactly. So, yeah.
Ankit, we have less time, else we would have gone much deeper in your question. But we are towards the end of the session. So thank you so much, everyone. We get to the part where the best questions are being announced. Probably not remember the person who has asked, but which question was good. Jimmy, according to you, which question was good?
I think the question was how to get the first customer. Somebody had asked that.
So the person who has asked, if you remember that, you reach out to Jimmy on LinkedIn or Twitter. He'll give 10 minutes of his time. Anyways, this is getting recorded, so you can hold him on that. Anthony,
sure.
According to you, which question was good?
Well, actually, there was a question typed on the chat regarding revenue versus profitability. I think that is an important question to answer, especially in these times. Somebody had asked earlier whether...
Ajay had asked. So Ajay, you win that reward. You can reach out to Anthony on Twitter or LinkedIn. Weber, which question was good according to you?
Just going through the Q&A.
Yes, there are some unanswered questions.
Let me just figure out the question.
Okay, Prakhar, which question was good according to you?
I like the one about the sales cycle reduction.
Okay, awesome. So the person who has asked this question, you
Vivek, I think that was by Vivek.
Yes, Vivek, if you're still there, you win that. If you're not there, we'll move on to somebody else.
I would go for the competition one, wherein the reliability for the how do you build against the competitor.
Awesome. So thank you so much, everyone. I believe Swaroop and Shashi are there from the Innocity team. Shashi, you are there? Or Swaroop? By the time they unmute yours.
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Hi, Jatin. How are you?
How are you? Doing great. Yes. Shashi, if you can just summarize our discussion today and the closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jatin, it's always wonderful. Firstly, to see you being moderating, startups and somebody who has already achieved so much. And we used to do this, offline. And with Innocity, obviously, with the lockdown, so we have started, doing a lot of virtual sessions. And this is, one in that series particularly. And the idea is, whatever we were doing. Yeah. So the idea is, whatever we were doing previously, so can we translate that, into an online format and have the same value delivered to everyone, and it's been going great for last couple of months, and we have a lot of audiences who have come back to us saying that yes, during this period, so they have gained some new insights about how to build their startups and different strategies. So today, like we was discussing about sales strategies and particularly for SaaS startups. So small nuggets that probably from out of the whole workshop, if somebody can take out 10 to 20% of and use that bit in their own startup or in their own startup journey, so that I think that's achievement for me and for the team as well. And Innocity as a whole, so it's a regional initiative, and now we are coming into another avatar of can we take this to multiple regions rather than just concentrating on one, because now we realize in a digital world there are no online or offline boundaries, and so those virtual boundaries are now removed, and we are reaching to a larger audience and typically trying to help startups which are there broadly focusing more on tier 2, tier 3 regions of India. But yes, it is open now for everyone as well. And so thank you to all the panelists, and thank you Jatin for this interacting session as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Jimmy, Prakhar.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jatin. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's over.
Thanks,
Probably,
Jatin.
hopefully, looking forward to meeting all of you also.
Have a good evening. See you.
Have a
Bye.
good evening.
Sounds good.
Okay.
See ya. Bye.